greatest individuals in the entire history of the Gemara was a gentleman by the name of Rabbi Elazar bar Padas. Rabbi Elazar bar Padas is called Mara de Eretz Yisrael. He was the teacher in the Jewish nation of his time. Rashi explains to us that to his address came all questions, to his home came all issues of the Jewish people. But despite the fact that he was a very great individual, and despite the fact that he lived a pure Torah life, he suffered. He suffered poverty, disease, illness. He had a very austere existence. The Gemara gives us an example of how rough his life was. One day he went for a medical procedure, and when he came home there was nothing to eat. But nothing to eat doesn't mean, oh no, meatloaf again. Nothing to eat means literally a bare cupboard. He reached in and found a clove of garlic, bit into it, and passed out from malnourishment. The word quickly spread that the great Rabbi Elazar bar Padas is unconscious. Ashuli Bey Rabbanan, the rabbis came to visit, to be with him. And this is what they witnessed. He's in that state of unconsciousness, and first he begins crying, then he begins laughing, then a beam of light comes out from his forehead. He is air when he awoken. They said, "My high, what was the meaning of this? The crying, the laughing, the beam of light?" He said as follows: Yashav imi HaKadosh Baruch Hu. At that moment, Hashem Himself came to visit me, and I said to Hashem, Ad masai et star by Alma. Until when will I suffer in this world? When will my suffering end? And Hashem said back to me, Elazar bani, Elazar my son, Nichalach, is it good for you? Would you like me Would you like me to re-begin the world? Would you like me to re-begin from the moment of creation? Maybe you'll be born into a time of sustenance. I said to Hashem, says Rabbi Elazar bar Padas, you'll re-begin creation, start the whole thing over, and maybe I'll be born to a time of sustenance. Maharsha explains to us that Rabbi Elazar bar Padas was being offered something unique. He was being offered the opportunity to pick another life. You're not happy in your current existence, you're not happy in your current life. Would you like to be put into another generation, into another time, which might not include poverty? And apparently, his life was so difficult, was so rough, that he didn't know if he had the fortitude. So he said to Hashem, have I already lived halfway? Have I passed the halfway mark? Hashem said, yes, you've lived more than half of your years. Im kain lo ba'ina. If so, don't put me into another life. Put me back into the life that I had been leading. At which point, says Rabbi Elazar bar Padas, Hashem said to me, the reward that you're going to receive is an estate that's so wide and so vast that there are 13 rivers running through it. Again, the Maharsha helps us understand this Gemara. His reward is speaking in the world to come. In the world to come, there's no physicality, there's no estates, there's no rivers. It's a parable. If you take a man in our world who's so wealthy, he owns such a large tract of land that there's not one river, but literally 13 rivers, an entire state. That is equivalent. That's an understanding of his wealth in the world to come. At which point Rabbi Elazar bar Padas said to Hashem, Kulei hai v'sulo. That's all. Just 13 rivers, no more. And Hashem said, Elazar, if I give you more, what's going to be left for your friends? So I said to Hashem, give me those portion from those who didn't earn it. Again, the Maharsha helps us understand. The Maharsha explains that when Hashem creates a person, Hashem creates for that person a place in the world to come. If they earn it, it's theirs. If not, it's left unclaimed. Rabbi Elazar bar Padas was saying, give me those portions from those who didn't earn it. Hashem was entertained. Hashem touched me on the forehead, saying, Giri Bach, as if to say, touche. And that's the end of this piece in the Gemara. And I'd like to ask one obvious question. We're dealing with a great man. We're dealing with a tzaddik. We're dealing with a man who lives his entire life, his entire existence for his nation. He's other-centered. He's the one person who really, really gets it. And he's suffering. But he's not suffering lightly. Poverty, disease, illness. To such an extent that the very first thing he says to Hashem is, when will my suffering end? There are many, many things that a person might be tempted to discuss with the creators of the heaven and the earth. This is a man who spends his life serving Hashem, and he's suffering so that the very first expression is, when will my suffering end? Wouldn't you imagine that Hashem would say, okay, you're a good man. You've done well. I'll take over from here. But not only isn't that what Hashem says, Hashem says this rather difficult to understand expression. Do you want me to re-begin the world? Reshuffle the deck? Maybe I can find you a generation that you'll have sustenance? If I were Rabbi Elazar ben Padas, I would say, don't turn back the world to its moment of creation. How about a cup of coffee and a tuna fish sandwich? He's asking for basic necessities. And not only doesn't Hashem say, okay, Hashem says it's rather difficult to understand. Do you want me to put you into a different life? Do you want me to give you a different generation? Why didn't Hashem just say, you're a good man, you suffered, I'll take over from here on in? And I'd like to spend a little time this evening to see if we could better understand what the Gemara is telling us, because I believe it's a fundamental life lesson. And to help open up this Gemara, I'd like to ask you to join me in a little scenario. Imagine the following. Imagine an actor gets a call from his agent and it sounds something like this. Hey, listen, Jack, we got a great script. It's a guaranteed Oscar. I'm sending it by. I want you to sign on it. Actor looks over the script. Agent calls him the next day. Jack, we're doing it, right? Nope. Oh, Jack, what is it? The cash? We can get more cash for the deal. I'm not doing it. But is it the other actors? We can change them out. We're going to do it, guy, right? I'm not doing it. What's the problem? Bob, don't you understand? Playing this part means the whole world sees me as a bum, a down and out. I can't stand the embarrassment. Jack, that's just the part you're playing. We're going to do it, guy, right? I can't stand the embarrassment of the whole world seeing me as a luckless down and out. Click, he hangs up the phone. That conversation never happened, because any actor, as well as anyone going to the theater, understands that there's one criteria for judging an actor. An actor is judged based on how well he played his part. If his part is to be the most glib, successful individual of the generation, and he plays his part poorly, the critics will rip him to shreds. If his part to play is an idiot savant, but he plays his part well, he'll win accolades, he'll win awards. The actor is judged by one single issue: how well did he play his part? And I believe that that's a very apt parable for life. You know what, ladies, why don't we take some chairs? Can I trouble someone, please? Ladies, are you guys taking chairs from there? Are you defeating my whole... I thought I was acting like a Baal Chesed, and they're... Pleasure. Let's be Roas and Nolan for the next people who come in. We'll bring some more chairs. Oh, that's good. Okay, take 4 extra just so that way we don't go through this again. I wonder how this looks on the video, you know. Stop, over the chairs, come back. Oh, they have editing software. And he said, you don't even see that there was a break. In any case, I think that this is a very apt parable, a very apt mashal to describe life. And I'll explain to you why. Each of us will give in a very exact stage setting, a very exact part to play. And at the end of our days, each one of us will be judged. But I will not be judged compared to you. You won't be compared to her. Each one of us will be demanded from a much higher, much more exacting standard. They'll hold up a picture of a great individual and they'll say the words, why isn't that you? They'll say, why isn't that you up there? At which point I'm going to say the words, you want me to be that great person who changed himself and changed the world? How could you expect that of me? And the Gra says, they say the most telling words a human being could ever hear. That is you, had you lived up to your potential, had you used your strength. But you see, that picture is a picture of me. It's not a picture of you. Each person was given different talents, abilities, different levels of intelligence, different environments. And each individual is obligated to become as much of them as they could be. And at the end of our days, we're judged. But the judgment standard is me. How much of me did I become? 80%, 60%, 40%? But you see, this concept is fundamental to understanding life. I don't believe that there was a human being who woke up in the morning and said, Hashem, I think you should create me with 180 IQ. No, make it an 80 IQ. A little dumb, a little kind of slow, be real good. Should make me 6'4", big and... No, should make me 4'6", kind of bent over and hobbled over. You see, we don't get to choose the life setting. Hashem chooses a life setting for us. That means a level of intelligence, a temperament, a certain personality. We're put into this world with a very exact stage setting, and like an actor, we're given a role to play. We're told to go out there, ford those streams, climb those mountains, become as much of you as you can become, and you will be judged. But it's against you, against how much you could have done with your abilities, your talents. And it doesn't take an awful lot of wisdom to recognize that different people were given different life settings. Some people are very gifted and some people are not. Some people are very talented and some people are not. And if you look around the room, just here, you'll quickly see that each person was given a vastly different life. That means different set of parents, different generation, different levels of different things. And I'd like to share with you that if you don't understand this concept, you should have many, many questions on Hashem. And the first one being, it's not fair. Why is it she has it so good? Great parents, great siblings. She's pretty, she's popular and smart. Why is it so easy for her and it's so hard for me? And if you're honest, you might be right. It might be much easier for her. But you see, that's the point. I'm not judged compared to you. You're not judged compared to anyone else. You are rated, you are judged by you. Given this amount of intelligence and this amount of natural abilities, you are judged by how much of you became. I got a chance to speak at my son's bar mitzvah, and I told an interesting story at his bar mitzvah. It was a story of a small Sefer Torah that had been recently then in the news. The story went something like this. Rabbi Dasberg noticed a young boy, Yoachim Yosef, who was close to bar mitzvah age. And Rabbi Dasberg approached this Yoachim Yosef and said, I want to teach you how to lane. And Yoachim Yosef flatly refused. Rabbi Dasberg said, no, I want you to lane. And again, Yoachim Yosef refused. Rabbi Dasberg persevered, and in the end, Yoachim Yosef laned from a very small Sefer Torah in the barracks of Bergen-Belsen. You see, Rabbi Dasberg somehow had smuggled this very small Sefer Torah in with him when he was brought into the concentration camp. He saw this boy close to bar mitzvah age and he said, I want you to lane. And in fact, under the Nazis' eyes, they gathered together a minyan early one morning, just before it turned light. He laned from this small Sefer Torah with a minyan and in fact had his bar mitzvah. After the celebration, Rabbi Dasberg then turned to Yoachim Yosef and said, and now I have another request. I want you to take this Torah with you. And Yoachim Yosef said, I'm a little boy, how can you expect that of me? Rabbi Dasberg said, you don't understand. I'm an old man. I don't think I'm going to make it out of here. I want you to take this Torah and I want you to promise me that the whole world will hear about it. Rabbi Dasberg again persevered and Yoachim Yosef took that small Sefer Torah. And Yoachim Yosef survived, ended up in Israel, put that Torah in a small closet where it remained for years. Many, many years later, Ilan Ramon was preparing for his role aboard the Columbia. He had a certain question of an issue of science that he needed an expert to consult with. He made an appointment to meet with Dr. Yoachim Yosef in his apartment in Tel Aviv, and they met. After the issue that Ilan Ramon came to discuss was finished, somehow the conversation turned to the small Sefer Torah in the closet, and Ilan Ramon asked permission to take it with him into space on the Columbia. As you probably remember, unfortunately it had a very tragic ending because the Columbia, upon re-entry into Earth's atmosphere, exploded into flames. But that promise made 57 years earlier was fulfilled because the whole world read about that Sefer Torah. I chose to tell this particular story to my son at his bar mitzvah because I wanted to ask him one pointed question. I said to him, did you choose to be born in the United States of America in the 1990s? Did Yoachim Yosef choose to be born in Poland in the 1920s? Neither of you chose, but you had better believe that his life is vastly different than yours. You see, it's not just temperament. It's not just nature. The very family into a given birth order with an older nagging sister and a younger wimpy brother. You're put into this life and it fits you like a hand in glove into a particular generation, into a particular setting that fits you, that allows you to become the great individual you can become. But it's not by accident, not by happenstance. You're given the exact stage setting to become what you can become. And it fits you to a T. Fits you exactly. And if you think about it, and you look around, you quickly see that there are a vast array of talents and many, many different doses given to different people. As you know, and I know, but I'll give you one example. I know two brothers. One, everything he touches turns to gold. Financially very successful. Beautiful marriage, beautiful kids. And his brother, everything the brother touches turns to mud. Can't earn a living. His marriage is on the rocks. Excuse my expression, his kids are miseries. But here's the point. Two brothers born into the same household, brought up in the same neighborhood, went to the same yeshivas, but vastly different life. And this understanding that Hashem gives out different abilities, different talents, different stage settings, not by accident, not by happenstance, but to fit you exactly like a T, because that's what you need, is one of the key basic understandings of life. And if you don't understand this, then you will have many, many questions on Hashem, and they will be correct. Why is it that some people really do have it much easier? Why is it that I had to be born into this family with divorced parents and all the rest of the issues? And once you understand that all of it is but a stage setting, like an actor will put into the role, go out there, become the person you could become, then you understand life from a vastly different perspective. There was a novel written many years ago that was later made into a movie, later made into another movie. If I see you guys smile at some point, I'll know which version of it you read, saw, or saw. The story line goes like this. A football player is preparing for the Super Bowl 3 weeks ahead, and to get in shape, he's riding his bike on a country road. He's riding into a long, winding tunnel. Unbeknownst to him, there's a car coming from the other way. As the story goes, the angel of death is new on the job that day. The angel of death sees the car, sees the football player. The angel of death says, why wait for the blood, the mess, the gory accident? The angel of death decides to take the football player out of his body before the car crash. And in fact, that's what he does. He takes the football player out, brings him up to heaven, and the football player's body is buried. The problem is the angel of death made a mistake. Any normal person would have crashed, would have died, deserved to be buried up in heaven. But this man was an athlete with keen instincts. The last minute he would have veered off, would not have hit the car, deserves to be alive, but his body's buried. He is up in heaven. What do? A whole tumult, back and forth. What could they do? Finally, they decide to do the only thing they could do, which is to find someone whose time, in fact, is up. Someone as close in age to this person as they could find. And the football player opens his eyes and looks around this beautiful mansion, realizes that he's put into the body of this wealthy tycoon, and he feels the pampered, flabby body, and says to himself, oh my goodness, I got 3 weeks left to the Super Bowl game. So the cute part of the story, he has the butlers and the maids on the front lawn running football drills as he tries to get his arm in shape for the game. I see some people nodding over there. We see 1980, 1973. You're not that old, folks. Okay. Anyway, here's the punchline. I'd like to share with you folks a very powerful observation. And that exact experience happened to every one of us. You see, before I was here, before I was in this existence, I was in a neshama under Hashem's throne of glory, and Hashem said, this is your life. Into this generation, into this family, into this body, this amount of strength, this amount of intelligence, put in, fitting like a hand in glove, and told, go out there and live your life. And I believe that's exactly what Hashem was saying to Rabbi Elazar bar Padas. You see, great wealth is a major life test. When you wake up in the morning and you're really, really rich, you feel powerful. I don't need anybody. I don't need my kids. I don't need my wife. I don't need God. I'm so rich I can buy and sell the world. That is a major life test. And as wealth is a major life test, so too is poverty. When you can't pay the bills, when you barely scrape together enough money to stall off the foreclosure of your house, and you're driving at night and you hit a car, you look left, you look right, and no one's there, do you leave your phone number or do you not? That is a major life test. And I believe what Hashem was saying to Rabbi Elazar ben Pardas was, it's not by accident that you were born to poverty. This is the ideal state setting for you, and this is the perfect life for you. Do you want me to reshuffle the deck, find you a different generation that doesn't include poverty, that might allow you to become the great individual you could become? Maybe I can, and maybe I can't, says Hashem. Why? Because this has been handcrafted, perfectly formed to allow you, to become the greatness of you. And this understanding, I believe, is fundamental to making sense of the way Hashem runs the world and the way Hashem meets out different situations. And it's rather ironic that you could have very intelligent people, often even great thinkers, who fundamentally miss this point. Let me share with you an example of that. Alan Dershowitz, a Jewish boy, who was a famous Harvard lawyer. You probably remember him from the Dream Team defending O.J. Simpson. Anyone? Okay. In any case, Alan Dershowitz writes many books. Much of what he writes is worth reading. Some of what he writes is not worth reading. In The Vanishing American Jew, he writes something that's well worth not reading. Here's what he writes. He's teaching a course in Harvard Law about thinking. This is dealing with the big deal issues of life. And at a certain point, they decide to rate the different religions. Which one's got it right? Which one's got it wrong? Judaism, Buddhism, Catholicism. They go through the gamut. At a certain point, someone makes the following observation. My friends, religion is a way of relating to God, a way of serving God. If we're rating the different religions, doesn't it behoove us to rate God? So they decided to give God a rating, A, B, C, D, or F. How did God do at this thing called creation? Okay, now before I let you know how God did, let me share with you the background. I guess if you look around the world, you see a lot of beauty. There's friendship, there's love, there's sunrises, there's a lot of nice things in the world. On the other hand, there are some rough spots. There's pain, there's poverty, there's orphans, there are widows, there's a lot of hardship. On balance, God rates a B minus. Not bad, not an F, certainly not an A plus. On balance, God rates a B minus. Okay. Now, if I had my opportunity to rate our learned professor, I would give him a rating. It would be a D for dumb. And I'll explain to you why. Watch. Imagine I pull this pen out of my pocket and I say, folks, this is a lousy toothpick. Whoever designed this toothpick did a lousy job. Look. Who needs that whole clicker thing? And then this part over here, the barrel. Every time I get it back in my molars, I get this blue inky thing. Whoever designed this toothpick did a lousy job. That would be an example of false thinking. Why? Because before you rate the manufacturer, you have to know what they intended it to be used for. As a writing implement, it's well designed. As a toothpick, it's lousy. But before you rate Bic, you had better understand what they designed it to do. And if you try to rate the manufacturer without understanding what he designed it to do, you're going to come up with some pretty silly thoughts. And I claim that if you attempt to rate God before you fundamentally understand why Hashem created the world, why Hashem put us here, what life is about, you're going to come up with some pretty silly ideas. And I'd like to share with you a very small mushal, a parable to understand, fundamentally understand life. Imagine you're invited to a very exclusive health club. You've never been there before, but you know the layout. On the right side is the gym, on the left side is the spa. The gym has got all the exercise equipment, the Nautilus, the treadmills, everything you need to get in shape. And left side is the spa, you have the sauna, the steam room, the massage tables. You decide it's been a very stressful week. You're going right to the spa. But by mistake, instead of turning left, you turn right and you walk into the gym. Oh my goodness, who made this spa? What's all this equipment, all these red-faced people grunting and sweating? Whoever designed this spa did a lousy job. That is a very apt parable for Hashem's creation of the world. See, Hashem made two worlds, this world and the world to come. Mr. Sharma explains to us that Hashem created this world for us to grow, for us to accomplish. This world is the gym. We're given various challenges, various situations, all of which give me the opportunity to mold myself, to make myself into what I'll be for eternity. When I'm done my job here, I leave, and forever I go to the spa, I enjoy that which I made myself into. But two worlds, each with its purpose, each with its reason. And if you don't understand this, if you sincerely believe that life ends in the grave, then I would like to share with you, I don't believe Hashem would rate a B-. Elsie the cow dies and her nefesh, the essence of Elsie, just evaporates. If you sincerely believe that man dies the same way, life ends in the grave and it's over, then God would rate an F. An F for designing so many features in man that make no sense, that make his stay on the planet difficult, that make it very, very hard to enjoy life. Anyone here ever suffer from a headache? Toothache? How about a migraine? How about arthritis? I walked a man up 3 steps on Yom Kippur. I believe he suffered more pain in those 3 steps than I suffered my entire year. Rheumatoid arthritis that racks him with pain. Debilitating pain that literally gives him no rest. Why create it? And I believe in that 100 billion neuron brain called, that great computer called the brain. Hashem could have designed different ways for man not to feel pain. And if you're not sure I'm right, I'll share with you something very interesting. When you step on a pin and you quickly pull your leg away, that pain is processed in the spine. You know why? Avoidance pain, that jerking away from the hot pot. If the neurotransmitters had to bring it all the way up to the brain, it would take too long. So therefore that's processed in the spine so that you get that reaction quick and you pull your hand away. The debilitating pain that doesn't let you get out of bed is processed in the brain and does no good. Doesn't teach you to avoid things, and doesn't help you, serves no benefit in man. And what about disease? What about creating a stupefying immune system that kills every known disease but leaving gaping holes in it? And what about creating illnesses? And what about creating microbes that are clearly designed to penetrate that immune system? If Hashem is caring, if Hashem is good, why make it? And the Mesilas Yesharim explains to us that if you believe that life ends in the grave, then fundamentally Hashem blew it. Pain, suffering, illness, all of the situations in life have no answers. Not that there aren't answers, not that you don't know the answers, there is not an answer. And what the Mesilas Yesharim says to us is, a thinking, rational person will quickly understand that man's condition in this world shows us there are two worlds. This world is a place to grow, to accomplish. Many situations serve no good here, but allow you to become a different person. Are challenges that force you to make decisions to either grow and become great or the opposite. But once you understand that there are two worlds, there's a gym and a spa, life itself fundamentally makes sense. And if you don't understand this, you will have many, many legitimate questions that have no answers. And again, Mr. Sharm explains that man's condition in this world screams out that there's a bigger purpose, there's more to life than this world, and we're here for a much greater purpose. I get a chance to speak in different communities, and sometimes I get reactions that are a bit curious. I was speaking in one community, and after I was finished, some people came over to ask questions, comment, etc. An older woman came over at the end. Rabbi, I love the lecture. Thank you very much. Her husband followed suit. Rabbi, I love the lecture, but... Now, I've been around the block long enough to know that when you hear the words, Rabbi, I love the lecture, but... something's coming. So I waited to see where this was going. Rabbi, I love the lecture, but according to what you've just said, I've wasted my entire life. I asked him, what do you mean? And he explained to me what he meant. Folks, I'd like to share with you, when you're on this side of the lectern, And an 80-year-old man is on the other side saying, according to what you've just said, he's wasted his entire life, and you know that he might be correct, it's a very uncomfortable position to be in. And I'd like to share with you part of what I said to that community that time, and part of it I no longer say, but here's part of it. I began as a high school teacher. I taught in a regular yeshiva, good boys from good homes. Part of the job of a high school rebbe is to teach guys how to learn. Part of his job, maybe the bigger part, is teach them how to live, how to understand life. At some point in the year, usually in the beginning, I would challenge the guys with the following question. I would say, gentlemen, why don't you sin? But I don't mean little stuff. I mean big deal stuff. Go out there, murder, kill, do everything evil under the sun. So invariably, I get a number of guys who say, yeah, Hashem will be angry with me. I don't want Hashem to be angry with me. I would say, gentlemen, listen very carefully. Many, many wicked people have flourished throughout the millennia. Don't you worry about God. Do whatever you want. Yeah, that's true now. But my neshama is going to burn. I don't want my neshama to burn. At which point I would look at this guy in the eye and say, aha, you're telling me there are many things that you don't want to do that you're going to do. And many things that you do that you're really not interested, all for your neshama? Listen to me. You take care of you and don't worry about your neshama. You party. You do exactly what you want to do and let your neshama worry about itself. Why should you work so hard so your neshama should have a good time? You take care of you and let your neshama burn. Now, I would always say this standing by the door, and no one was allowed to leave before I said the answer. I didn't want to hear 20 years later a guy becomes a serial killer. Well, Rabbi Schaefer said, so they had to stay for the answer. Would you like to know what the answer to this question is? Mr. Salanta says there's one mistake we make about death. We think about death as fundamentally different than now. He says that's wrong. If I walk into the room and I take my coat off, I emerge, I'm there. Says Mr. Salanta, that is death. The body, the coat, is put into the ground. But I, the one who thinks, the one who feels, and the one who has all of my memories, live on. But you see, the body is put in the ground, but I stand in front of Hashem. But you see, it's not my distant cousin, not my alter ego, not my neshama, it's me. But we usually don't think about death that way. Normally, if you talk to people about death, they get this sort of glassy-eyed look of like asleep, like at rest, right? You go to the cemetery, at rest, rest in peace. Harvey was a good man, he's in his final resting place. My friends, rest means the following. You break your arm, you're in pain, you take Tylenol, codeine, Percocet. Finally, 3 a.m., you're not there, you're asleep. You're not there so the arm doesn't bother you. That's not death. Death is not going to sleep. The body is put in the ground, but I am acutely aware. I, the same I who thinks, the same I who feels, live on with a brilliant awareness, fully awake. But this concept requires a little bit of thought. So let me share with you an interesting Musar exercise. Imagine the following. Imagine you're driving, and the truth is you're driving a little bit fast. All right, what are you going to do? Now, you ladies well know the social etiquette demands of today, and that is if you get a text, you must respond within 0.06 of a second. No matter where you are, no matter when, you must instantly respond. So, being a polite individual that you are, and despite the fact you're going a little fast, you get the text, you have to respond. So you text back. Okay? And you get a text back. And you text back. Back and forth, all of a sudden, crash, flying metal, glass all over the place. You wake up 3 days later in the hospital. The doctor looks down over your bed and says, "Ma'am, sorry to be the one to tell you this, but you'll never move your legs again." And you see, he's right. Here's the question. Are you alive? Of course you're alive. You're going to have to learn to live a different lifestyle. It's going to be very different, but you are fully alive. Okay, let's take the same example but ratchet up a bit. Same texting, same social etiquette, same car crash, same doctor, but the doctor looks down at you and says, "Ma'am, sorry to be the one to tell you this, but you'll never move another muscle in your body again." And you feel your arms, and they don't move. And you feel your legs, and they don't move.
I can't move. On my head, on my chest, I can't move. Help! Help! I'm stuck in here.
And your friends come to visit. And you know how people say those silly things that they say, oh, you look terrible.
Thanks a lot, and I'm bad enough I can be stuck in here. You gotta tell me how bad I look.
So here's the question. Are you alive? You think, you feel, you remember. Are you alive? If you're not sure whether you're alive or not, I'd like to share with you, there's a book written called The Butterfly and the Diving Bell about a man who woke up in just such a state. He had been the editor of Elle magazine in France. He was in such a car crash, and he woke up in the hospital, locked into his own body, not able to move his arms, his legs, his head, or his chest. And the book chronicles his life, the days, the weeks, the months that he spent in that state. He describes the nurses. Some were so sweet and kind. Some were One he named Attila the Hun. I think she flies on a broom at night. He describes his kids coming to visit, how happy he was to see them, but how pained he was by the fact that he couldn't reach out and touch them. Interestingly enough, he could move one muscle. He was able to blink his left eye. A speech pathologist devised a method for him to communicate. She took the alphabet, put it vertically on a card. She would move her finger down the card. When she got to a letter that he wanted to signal, he would blink his eye, and she would write down that letter. If you'd like to know whether that man was alive in that state or not, he wrote that book in that state. You see, he would compose the sentences and the paragraphs in his mind in the morning. In the afternoon, his secretary stood at the foot of his bed, taking dictation, letter by painstaking letter, because he died in that state. And if you'd like to see an example of a man's body effectively dead, yet the essence of him fully alert, awake, and alive, I think it makes an interesting read. But interestingly enough, this concept today is no longer that foreign. This idea that I'm not the body, that I'm the one inside the body, like an astronaut who wears that suit, I am the occupant of the body, that concept is not so foreign to modern medicine. In 1979, Raymond Moody made quite a stir in the scientific community when he published his book called Life After Life. He coined an expression that's now famous, that we all know. The expression he coined was near-death experience. As you know, near-death experience is a situation where the patient is clinically dead. Whether it be a heart attack, whether it be a car crash, the patient is clinically dead. Oftentimes there's no respiration, no heart rate, no brain activity. Somehow the patient is resuscitated, and they describe what it was like during the 4 minutes that they were dead. And there's an eerie commonality. They describe popping out of the body, looking from above and watching. But the strange part is that they recall detailed events, conversations that were held when they were dead. They were blue in the face. They couldn't hear a thing. But when they're resuscitated, they repeat verbatim things that went on. And when Raymond Moody published this book, he chronicled hundreds of cases, and it made quite a stir in the scientific community because it wasn't too well accepted. But the problem was, it was carefully researched. Since that time, thousands upon thousands of cases have been written about, chronicled, studied, analyzed, and it seems to be accepted medical fact now that such phenomena exist. We don't understand it, we can't even relate to what it means, but modern man has come around to this understanding that I am not the body. Now, I'd like to share with you something of great interest. Lancet magazine, a prestigious British medical journal, recently published a study of a few hundred of these cases. But it's one particular story that I want to share with you. And you'll excuse me, part of the story has some gore in it, but it's worth hearing. The story went like this. A 36-year-old woman suffered an aneurysm in the brain, bleeding in the brain. Standard procedure called for operating, open the scalp, cauterizing the area, meaning taking a hot probe and searing the bleeding, stopping the bleeding, and she survived. Okay, that's normally what's called for. The problem was that the bleeding was so deep within the brain that had they gone into cauterize, they would have caused residual bleeding to the extent that they would have caused her to bleed to death. The surgeon said to her, "Ma'am, I'm very sorry to tell you this, there is nothing we can do for you." And they sent her home to die. There was one doctor who offered a theoretical possibility. he had devised a method called standstill. Standstill basically involves cutting off all blood to the brain. They drain all the blood from the brain. And he said that in theory, if we do this, the surgeon goes in and moves very quickly, he could stop the bleeding and then close you back up. Then we put the blood back in. There can be no bleeding because there's no blood in your head. In theory, it should work. There was no other alternative. She consulted with other medical professionals. She consulted with a clergy. She, in fact, decided to undergo the procedure. Okay, but here was the problem. There could be no bleeding, but zero bleeding. They put tape over her eyes, put probes in her ears, put her under anesthetic, and put her body in a bath of ice. When the core temperature was as low as they could get it, they then drained the blood out of her head. The surgeon opened the scalp, went in, cauterized the area, closed the scalp back up. They put the blood back in, took her out of the bath of ice, took her out from under anesthetic, and amazingly she survived. A little while later, while she's recuperating, the surgeon comes in to visit her. And she says as follows, Doctor, I must share with you. When you were operating on me, I had this strangest dream. I dreamt that I popped out of my body and I was hovering on the ceiling and I was looking down. And I dreamt that as I was looking down, you took an electric toothbrush. You took an electric toothbrush and you tried to insert it into a vein in my thigh. And it wouldn't go in. So you turned to the nurse next to you and you said, it doesn't fit. She said, try again. So you tried again. And you said, it still doesn't fit. So the nurse said, try again. You tried a second time. You said, it doesn't fit. The nurse said, try one more time. You tried a third time and it fit. Doctor, isn't that funny? The doctor didn't laugh. The doctor turned white. Because part of the procedure involved taking a medical instrument that from afar looked something like an electric toothbrush. He needed to insert it into a vein in her thigh, but her veins were too small. And he turned to the surgical nurse next to him and said, it doesn't fit. She said, try again. He tried again and it didn't fit. She said, try again. It doesn't fit. Try a third time and it fit. But that conversation between doctor and nurse was held while the woman's body was in a bath of ice. She was blue in the face, stone dead. Yet she heard, recounted vividly the event. And when you begin reading hundreds, thousands of such examples, you begin to get it. I'm not the body. And my friends, I'd like to share with you maybe the most obvious, but not so obvious point. When we go to shul on Shabbos, you ever get this like spiritual feeling like, wow, I feel Shabbos. Maybe it's on Yom Kippur, maybe it's at a certain time, and it almost feels strange because here I am, this physical being, temporarily having this spiritual experience. I'd like to share with you that that's exactly opposite of reality. I am not a physical being temporarily having spiritual experiences. I, the one who thinks, the one who feels, the one who remembers, am a spiritual being. Hashem took me from under the throne of glory, temporarily put me into this body, but I am spiritual. I am a spiritual essence temporarily having a physical experience. And now you can understand all the mitzvahs in the Torah. What does shatnez do? Wool is good, linen is good, put them together, oh, no good. Meat is good, milk is good, put them together, oh, no good. It won't affect your body at all. Find me a chemical difference, find me a physiological effect, and you won't find it. But it doesn't affect the body. It's the I that's affected. It's the I that's changed. And every time I act kindly, sweet, and nice, I become a different person. And every time I act selfish and creepy, I become a different person. Life is a great laboratory of growth. Every situation, every event is an opportunity to mold yourself to become greater or the opposite, constantly, 24/7, your entire existence. And when I explained this to that community, this 80-year-old man came over to me and said, Rabbi, I love the lecture, but according to what you've just said, I've wasted my entire life. And I asked him, what do you mean? He said, well, quite simply, worked my whole life, made lots of money, did real well, but these ideas that I'm here to grow, to accomplish, every conversation changes me, molds me, I never thought about these things. And according to what you said, I've wasted my entire life. Now, folks, if you wake up to this idea when you're 90 or 80, it's a little late in the game. It's never too late, but it's late in the game. What if this man thought about when he was 40, when he was 30, when he was 20? But you see, it's an astonishing fact. You could watch people, intelligent people, thinking people, who are so clued into everything except the most basic question of existence. What am I doing here? Why did Hashem create me? What's the purpose of life? And you got to ask the following question. Sir, you're a smart person. You understand and accept that God created the heavens, the earth, and all that it contains, right? So, therefore, you accept the fact that God created you as well. Did you ever ask yourself, gee golly, why? Nah, I never did. Never thought about it. Could it be that there was a plan, that there was a purpose? Maybe God was bored on a Sunday, had nothing to do. He said, let me make man. So I made man. I kind of doubt it. It's a vast, complex world. Intricately designed, perfectly formed. Why did Hashem create it? Why did Hashem make you? What are you doing here? And that is the most basic question that any human being is obligated to ask themselves. And astonishingly, the vast majority of the world never even begins to ask. And it's rather strange and rather interesting. And would you like to know what the biggest effect of not asking that question is? I'd like to share with you. We live in unique times. Never in the course of history has there been so much wealth, opportunity available to man. We live in opulent homes. We have such luxuries. Look at kings of yesteryear. Take King George sitting on his throne with his layers and layers of thick furs. You know the famous picture around the time of George Washington, the King of England, was King George sitting on the throne with all his furs and his pelts. Why was he sitting there with such heavy layers? Because you heated the palace with a fireplace. Radiant heat is very good for heating this part. Well, this part is cold, so you turn around, so this part's warm and this part's cold. The king with the crown jewels couldn't heat his palace. He walked dank, smelly hallways at night. He got into 36 inches of down feather. You know what down feather is? You go, your back just cricks, and there's no chiropractors. When he got into the crown royal carriage to ride to France, it was a week-long on pothole-filled roads. I get into my car with air suspension on highways that are so smooth and beautiful, surround sound speakers, because nothing but the best in my cheap used vehicle. The simplest, most common man in our world has luxuries that kings of yesteryear couldn't imagine. So here's the point. For centuries, all man dreamt about was freedom, opportunity, a homeland where we could have rights. Western man has arrived. We have freedom, we have rights, we don't fear the Black Plague, we don't fear marauders. You could shape your life and lead it exactly as you want. You're wealthy, you have all the opportunity in the world, man has arrived, so therefore, obviously, man is happy. Right? Wrong. Rather strange. Freedom, time, opportunity, education, everything available, and man isn't happy. Look at people today and ask them the question, how's life? And that one's right from the back of this book. How you doing? Hanging in there, surviving. But it's not a joke. There's no simchas achayim, there's no enjoyment. People are haggard and distracted and busy and absolutely miserable. And here's the question, why? You got it all, what are you so unhappy about? There was a novel written many years ago about a black fellow who grew up in the 1920s in the South. And he describes poverty back then. He says he went to bed hungry at night and got up hungry in the morning. There was never enough to eat. All day long he ran around with hunger pangs. All day long his stomach bothered him. One day as he's walking along a country road, he saw a neighbor had left out a garden hose. He opened the spigot and decided he was going to stop the hunger pang. He drank as much as he could with the idea of filling up his stomach with water so he wouldn't feel that emptiness inside. And he says that it worked. Because his belly was filled with water, he no longer felt the hunger pangs until 20 minutes later when the water passed. And then the hunger pangs came back more acutely, more strongly than before. If you would like to understand modern man, I think that's a very apt parable. People walk around with a hunger, with a thirst, and they try to fill it with material possessions, with honor, with new technology, and what they find is they wake up empty, aching inside. But it's not for more money, not for more honor, not for more toys. It's for meaning, it's for substance, it's for growth, it's for accomplishments. But you see, this is the great secret that modern man doesn't understand. And that is, Hashem created us for greatness. Hashem created us for growth. And if you'd like to know the single activity that a human being finds more enjoyable than anything else, it's growing, it's changing, because that's what Hashem put us on the planet to do. And if you spend your life distracted, if you spend your life pursuing frivolous, silly things, you could run from distraction to distraction, but you wake up at some point and you say, ugh, empty, feeling lousy, life stinks. And the reason you feel that way is because at the core of your essence, there's a huge unmet need. Because Hashem didn't put you on the planet to just whatever, to hang out and just whatever. But this understanding is something that's so lacking. And once you understand this, you understand how to live life. You see, Rabbi Elazar ben Pedas was a very unique person. There were 3 reactions. Do you remember? First he cried, then he laughed, then the beam of light came out of his forehead. Hashem was telling him a tremendous lesson. It's not by accident that you were put into this life. Poverty is the ideal state setting for you. This is what you need. This is the exact state setting for you. And understanding that Hashem has designed, custom-made a life that fits you. We're but actors on the stage, and at the end of our days we'll be judged. But I won't be compared to you, and you won't be compared to her. They'll hold up a picture of me with my talents, my abilities, and they'll say how much of I did I become. But understanding that I'm not the body. This is a temporary existence. I'm the part inside. I am the neshama. The body is put in the ground and I separate. And for eternity, I am what I shape myself into. But you see, it's not only about the world to come. Elazar ben Pedas had 3 reactions. He cried, he laughed, and the beam of light. The beam of light, I understand. Hashem was entertained by his ambition. 13 rivers is great, but I could accomplish more. Hashem, you created me for even more. That ambition, that drive for greatness was something Hashem was entertained by, because Hashem did not create a single human being for mediocrity. So I understand the beam of light. I also understand why he laughed. If you were told that your estate in the world to come is 13 rivers, you'd also be quite happy. But why did he cry? You know what Rashi says? Rashi says the reason he cried was because Hashem said to him, you already lived half of your life. Remember, he didn't know if he had the strength to go back. He didn't know if he had the energy. He said, Hashem, did I at least live half of my life? Hashem said, yes, you lived half of your life. Oy vey, half of my life gone. He starts crying. And my friends, if you think about it, that's rather perplexing. This man is suffering pain, poverty, a very difficult life. So difficult that he doesn't know if he can continue. And then Hashem says, you've got past halfway, and he begins crying because he's halfway done. It's like a man running a marathon at mile 20. The judges say to him, you're setting the world record. And he said, oh, half of my race is gone already. What are you crying for? You should be filled with joy. You're the man who got it right. You're living your life appropriately. Baruch Hashem, the half is gone. Would you like to know Pshat in this Gemara? Rabbi Elazar ben Pedas loved life. And you know why? Because when he opened his eyes in the morning, he said to himself, 24 hours to grow, to accomplish, let's go. And because he understood life, there was a tremendous passion within him, a tremendous love of life. Because he understood that every situation in life is an opportunity to change, to grow, to change myself and change the world. And because of that, he had such a love of life. The man was filled with such a passion to the extent that when Hashem said, half of your life is gone, he began crying. My friends, this is a very, very powerful lesson, because the world to come ultimately is why Hashem put us here. But if you want to enjoy this world, that's a big part of the picture. Hashem wants us to enjoy this world, and Hashem put many, many features into this world strictly so that we should enjoy. From colors to taste to aromas, everything here for man to enjoy. And if you're not happy, nothing tastes good, nothing smells good, nothing is much fun at all. But if at the core of your essence you're living in harmony, if at the core of your essence you're at peace, if you know why you're here and you're growing and accomplishing, everything is beautiful, you gain the world to come and you enjoy this world as well. Before I end, I do want to just mention that the book that you mentioned at the beginning, Stop Surviving, Start Living, this is not out in the stores yet. It'll be, Mr. Shem, Pesach time, it'll be out in the stores. It's available on the Shmuz.com. I also have some copies here. Many, many people have told me already that it's a life-changing book. Some of the concepts, a lot of the concepts I dealt with tonight are, I deal with, it's a very, again, many people have told me it's gripping, moving, because it really focuses you on why we're here, what life is about, and stop surviving, stop just going through the motions, but really creating a life for yourself. So normally they're for sale for $20 on the site. I'm discounting here. They're available for $15. If anyone's interested, please look it over. And you could either leave the money in the box or you can give me the money, but please feel free to look it over. And if you like, you can access all the information on the Shmuz.com with the book or the other Shmuzim. And if anyone has questions, please feel free to come over and ask.